All right. Hi, folks. We're going to get into the presentation portion of the slideshow, or of the event, rather, with a slideshow. Cheryl Knabb is going to be presenting, as well as Michael Green and Jessica Hollister.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you all came today to our new space. If you've been to the old space, you would see that this is completely different, and we have windows in the training center, which is big boom here. And it's quiet. You don't hear all that traffic, although we do get planes coming over. My job is to tell you a little bit about WNYLRC, because I see a lot of people I know, and I see a lot of people that are new to me. Their faces are new to me. So welcome. And if you are new here, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about WNYLRC. That's an acronym for Western New York Library Resources Council, which is a big mouthful. Most people call us WNYLRC. And this is our region here that we cover. So we're one of 9 councils across the state. And we have these 6 counties that we provide services in. So we go from the lake down to the Pennsylvania border. We have about 58 members now, but the 58 members include all of the school libraries, and includes all of the public libraries in those counties. So if you're going to talk about buildings, we're probably about 450 to 500 buildings. Here's your agenda for the day. And right now, what I'd like to do is introductions. So I want everybody to introduce their name, provide their name, and what institution or organization they're with. So at some point today, if you want to, get to talk to somebody because you might have a collaboration in mind, you at least know who you need to see. Okay. So I'm going to start over here with Jake, and we're going to go around the tables, and then we'll go back here and around this way. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jake. I'm the Digital Services and Archives Librarian at Erie University.
Morning, everybody. Jim Maynard, Curator of Poetry Collection, University of Buffalo.
Hello, everyone. Matthew Shiso, Archivist / Curator at Defendant History Center in Jamestown, New York.
I am Ashley. I'm also from Jamestown, New York. I am the Collections Manager at the National Comedy Center.
Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Hollander. I'm the AUL for Distinctive Collections at the University of Buffalo.
I'm Courtney John at Ryan University. I'm a public services assistant.
I'm Dave Shane, Library Director at NAG University.
Hi, I'm Tom Murphy. I'm assistant librarian at the History of Medicine at UB.
I'm Pete Majors. I'm the Curator of the History of Medicine Collection at UB.
Hi, I'm Allison. I am the Associate Curator of the Poetry Collection and the Curator of the Rare Book Collection at the University of Buffalo.
Good morning, I'm Margaret Lapp. I'm the Director of Planning and Curation at Buffalo Center Parks and Services.
Grant. I'm an instruction librarian at. Hello, I'm Jessica Hollister. I'm the Dental Liaison Librarian at UB.
I'm Michael Green. I'm the Special Collections Librarian here at Newmark.
My name is Chris Rivera. I'm the Director of Chief Library Seminary of Religious Justice, which is a small nonprofit that has archives of prison writers and organizational writers.
Hi, I'm Rachel Nicolosi. I am the archivist at SEPA Gallery, and I am also a part-time librarian at the Aurora Town Public Library.
Dan Delandro. I'm the Head of Archives and Special Collections at Buffalo State.
Heather Gring, I'm the Rare Book Curator at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library.
Amy Sanderson, I'm the Collections Manager at the Theodore Roosevelt Inaugural Site.
Hope Dunbar, I'm the University Archivist at the University of Buffalo.
Adam Rubin, I'm a Special Collections Librarian at Buffalo and Erie County Public Library.
Amanda Sheff, Head of Special Collections and Archives at SUNY Philadelphia.
Jen Northup, I'm the Member Engagement Services Coordinator at WNYLRC.
I'm Jasper. I'm the Graduate Assistant at Fredonia.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming today. So let's talk about WNYLRC just a little bit. I don't want to bore you, but we were established in 1966, so we're hitting our 60th anniversary next year. So plan on coming to our annual meeting. Hopefully it'll be a big one. We were chartered 501c3. That means we're a not-for-profit. Yes, we get funded through New York State dollars, but we are considered independent, and we don't have to abide by some of the rules that the public libraries do. We're governed by a peer board which is unique in a not-for-profit situation. So that means that our colleagues sitting in this room are on our board. And we're one of 9. I told you that earlier. We're actually one of 9. We're regionally based. We go anywhere from New York City or Long Island and then Western New York. We're the stepchild in many ways because we're that far west of Albany. People just think it snows here all the time. So we do work closely with our members in many ways, particularly the public library systems who are the direct member. We work closely with the school library system directors. And then we work, how do I say, we also work with their members, but in a different way than we work with the systems. And then the special libraries, and that's why you're here today. And actually, that is our largest growing membership is in the special libraries, in the small archives, in the small repository. Membership year is July 1 to June 30th. And the reason I mention that is because that's also the same as the committee year. And member dues fluctuate. It's very inexpensive for our small repositories to belong here. It can be as little as $120 a year. And it's because it's based on your budgets, which I know your budgets are not great sometimes. We try to keep it as low as possible, but still provide the reason you want to be is you're going to get services from us. And then these are your services. So you can access to your continuing education, which Jen provides all of the WNYLRC sponsored education here for our members. And you're going to help us today by trying to say, okay, we need assistance with this, we need assistance with that. And we're going to take all of that information into account when we start to plan our next season. Access to grant funding. We just went through a cycle. So you can actually get grant funds from us. It was $40,000, or it was actually more this year. It was $55,000 that we gave out in grant funds. Those grant funds can support you in digitizing, it can support you doing some interesting projects. I know Hope has used us quite a bit. I know Dan and Heather will talk about that. That funding is critical to our members. So we try to make it so where there's at least 40,000 every year. Some years I can't, like last year, because we moved, but we do try to provide grant funding. Networking with fellow colleagues is what you're doing today, and I feel that this is very, very beneficial. Access to staff expertise like Michael and Jen, and we have Caitlin who does Ask Us 24/7. We have Debbie who will bill you your dues. She's excellent. And then we also have a hospital library services program. I don't know if you know that, but we have librarians that actually go to the hospitals to provide library services in the hospitals. And then legal assistance, ask the lawyer, really critical service. And we have all of the questions that have been publicly, they're anonymous, but they've been publicly available to all of you. There's right now about 300 RAQs on our website. You can access that anytime. And then archival assistance. Unfortunately, Heidi Zemer has left us. I don't know if many of you know Heidi. She was with this organization for over 30 years and she decided to retire. And so we lost that kind of expertise here, but if that's still something that this group needs access to, I need to hear that because then we will look at the future, what we can do. New York Heritage, I'm going to turn it over to Michael. Michael's going to come up and tell you about our digital services that are available.
Good morning. So I'm going to briefly run through some of our digital services that we offer. It's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to go through relatively quickly. So if you're not familiar with them, there's not a test, don't worry, and more information is in the folders you received. If you're someone who's very familiar with all of them, fantastic. Think of it as a review and you do have a test at the end. So first one, New York Heritage. It's a statewide platform that all 9 of the councils that Cheryl mentioned can contribute to. It's mostly collections like photographs, there are maps, there's even news broadcasts, videos, oral histories, all sorts of things. that are accessible to anyone who has an internet connection. We would love to have more collections on New York Heritage, so give us your digitized photographs. In the past, I know members were able to upload their information directly. You don't have to do that anymore. We take care of it. So all you have to do is send us the digitized items and the metadata, and we will upload them for you. So less for you to have to deal with. New York Heritage also has digital exhibits that are of interest to a lot of library patrons, and they also have education components that tie in with New York social studies curriculum. Similar to New York Heritage is New York State Historic Newspapers, another statewide platform that has, as you can see, over nearly 1.5 million issues and over 15 million individual pages. Both this and New York Heritage are included with membership. So again, if you have microfilm or if it's already digitized, let us know. Cheryl just mentioned this, but I'm including it here because this is a great way to help pay for that digitization if that's not something that you're able to do on the regular. Another statewide service is Empire Archival Discovery Cooperative, or Empire ADC, which centralizes finding aids from around the state. Again, a lot of this you probably already have at your institution, but here it can be more accessible to researchers that aren't familiar with your collections or with your organization. It is managed by one of our sibling councils, and unlike New York Heritage and the newspapers, there is a small fee to put your stuff on it. Similar to that one, and being run by one of our sibling councils, is our Digital Dark Archive. If you don't have that type of storage space for digital files, it's a great option if you need an additional backup for your material. And some other archival support elements that we have, Cheryl mentioned archival services. We have Ask the Archivist, which is a little bit like the Ask the Lawyer service she talked about, where you can submit questions about preservation, processing, really anything at all. And archivists from one of the 9 councils will respond to your question. Not directly connected to us, but the Documentary Heritage and Preservation Services for New York, or DIPSNY, because we have like really long names that are just shortened. They provide archival training and program needs assessments that can be really helpful if you yourself don't have maybe a background in archives. And one other group is the Western New York Archivists, or WNYLRC, slightly shorter word there. They're a group of archivists from the Western New York region who meet much like you're doing today. And their next meeting is May 22nd at St. Bonaventure. They are always looking for new members, and more information about that and contact information is in your folders. That's all from me, but if you have any questions about that, feel free to talk to any of us. And again, contact information is in your folders.
I'm Jessica again. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Preservation Committee. I only have a couple of slides here today. I'm not going to read off the slides verbatim, but essentially the purpose of the Preservation Committee, in tandem with WNYLRC's vision, is to support our local special collections, to educate our local special collections, and to advocate for our local special collections. So I'm going to put on the next screen, when I should mention our lovely chairs are in the room, Jake, Dion, and Adam, and Ruben, who introduced themselves before. And you also have some scattered Preservation Committee members throughout the room. And I will put the chart here on the screen so you can see some ways I put the chart on the screen for you to read here. I won't read verbatim from these slides, but then I'm going to provide a couple of examples of how we help support, how we help educate, and how we help advocate for our collection, collections here. So I'll leave this up momentarily, and then I'm actually going to move into a couple of our examples to give for today. Pertinent to many of the people in the room here, we'd like to highlight that we, with the assistance of WNYLRC, started this NEDCC training sponsorship series. For those who don't know, The NEDCC is the Northeast Document Conservation Center. This is a center that provides training for our preservation specialists, our special collection librarians, our archivists. And they offer these range of service to help conserve both physical and digital material. And what we have here is a link on the screen to this particular site. This particular site is linked on the Preservation Committee webpage on the WNYLRC website. And you could also email anyone from the Preservation Committee or anyone from WNYLRC, and they would be very happy to pass along this link to you. This link takes you to the existing scheduled trainings that are available through NEDCC. So getting into that sponsorship series a little bit more specifically, this is generally how the process goes. The applicant being the people in the room here today, browse the current online training programs. If they see ones they like, they can apply for sponsorship. I mentioned before that we had this linked on our Preservation Committee webpage on WNYLRC's website. We have an application there that you can fill out for trainings that you would like to have access to. From there, the Preservation Committee members deliberate. And if it fits within the purview of what we're able to provide, we are able to approve that sponsorship. So that I will note that the sponsorships are on a first come, first served basis, and they're at the discretion of the Preservation Committee and of WNYLRC. So I will just say that up top. If we approve this particular sponsorship, what happens is WNYLRC members actually apply, register you for the training program. So taking that cost off of our members and allowing them to have access to that education, that's us supporting that education there. And then finally, the applicant receives the registration link and is able to attend the program. So I think we've had some newer applicants in the room here today, and we have some more seasoned applicants in the room here today. So that might be a topic of discussion for the group, if you can ask around and see if this has been helpful to you. We would also like to know if this is a program you would like us to continue, because we are feeling very positively about this program so far. Moving on, we have some upcoming series we're hoping to offer. So this is the Archival Supplies Grant. And again, another way to help support our members here. This particular grant of up to $300 will be awarded based on need and merit as determined by the Preservation Committee. This is an upcoming series that's going to be offered. So the application is going to be announced quite soon. And they're looking to, it's going to be promoted over the WNYLRC listserv, so please keep a lookout for that. If you're not on the WNYLRC listserv, please contact people in the room here. Oh, Jen, just keep your hand raised the entire time. I think that would be helpful. Jen is over here, everyone. And so this is an upcoming grant series. I think that could be really helpful, especially maybe to some of our smaller repositories that may be in the room or not in the room here today. And we're hoping to get these grants can maybe help promote some of those programs that could lead to some of the digital services that Michael Green was talking about before. So information about this grant here, we're happy to go around the room and talk about this when we have our discussion portion. And then again, another one of our purposes in the Preservation Committee is to help educate. These are just a couple of examples of education materials we've put out there. We put out brochures before that we're looking to continue to promote and update, and including, I think, Mandy, I'm pretty sure, is this the archival enclosures for demonstration? Is that yours? Does it make?
I think that was Danielle.
Oh, maybe it was Danielle then. Okay. I was just like, I'm always like, Mandy wrote everything. So that's probably hers there. So we have, again, available through the Preservation Committee's page on the WNYLRC website, we have access to a couple of these educational materials that our committee members put together, and the link is there. I think that is the end of the preservation slides, and if they feel comfortable doing so, Heather, would you like to come up and talk for a little bit? So much.
Me that I took it myself years ago. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Okay. I am known for going off script sometimes and being long-winded, so I tried really hard to type up my notes today so I would stay on script. But thank you all so much for inviting me to speak today. It's been wonderful being a part of WNYLRC for many years now. It is kind of bananas when I reflect that I've been in this field for over a decade. And so that means I've been connected with WNYLRC for over a decade now, because this was one of my first connections I made when I came back to Buffalo in 2013. See, that's how I go off script. Okay, on script. Oh, God. Again. All right, cool. I'm going to stand over here and not use the mic so that I can kind of look at you. So my name is Heather Gring, and I'm the Rare Books Curator at the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library at Central Library in downtown Buffalo. Though I've been in this role for less than 2 years, I've been deeply connected with the cultural heritage community in Buffalo for almost 20 years now. This city has shaped me in more ways than I can name. I moved to Buffalo to attend Buffalo State College for my undergraduate degree in 2004, receiving my bachelor's in art history with a minor concentration in museum studies. I admit, as a little girl, I did not say I want to be an archivist when I grow up, but I have discovered my path because of this city and because of the mentorship and support I have received here. The first archive I ever visited was the Buffalo State Archives on a tour with Dan DeLandro, which I still remember today. It was, gosh, I don't remember which art history professor it was. It was the cranky one. Blitzer.
Insufficiently discreet.
Yes. Professor Blitzer brought us in, and it really did shape my life in more ways, right? Tracks. In more ways than I was aware of at the time, but I still remember that tour. Let's see. Later, when deciding where to go to graduate school, I talked to cultural heritage professionals all over town, like Kathy Leacock, who I am now on the board of WNYLRC with, trying to figure out where I was going to go and what I was going to do with all this, because Lord knows, what do you do with an art history bachelor's degree? And it really was talking to collection managers throughout the museums and institutions in Buffalo and learning how many of them had degrees in library science that helped me see what a translatable skill set it would be to explore that. Later, it was a dear professor, Professor Francis Gage at Buffalo State, who helped me make the terrifying decision of choosing to go to graduate school 3,000 miles away to attend the University of British Columbia's dual master's program in library science with a separate degree in archival studies. And, there was a safe choice, and it really was her advocacy that helped me push beyond that. And so these are all people still here in Buffalo today. When I was attending school at the University of British Columbia, I came home the first summer to intern at the Birchfield Penny Art Center. The second summer, I was invited back to run a pilot grant at the Birchfield called the Living Legacy Project, an oral history initiative to interview living artists at all different stages of their careers. Because of the success of the pilot project, the grant received funding for 3 years, which ultimately brought me home to Buffalo following graduation. Following that, we received a 3-year grant from IMLS to digitize 15,000 items from the Birchfield archives, thus funding about 6 of my 11 years at the Birchfield Penny. I share all of this because, especially for young graduates, finding a way into a solid position within this field can feel very daunting. But I do remind them, as recently as yesterday, that the relationships they build will influence the relationships they build today may influence their opportunities tomorrow, and that just because a job doesn't exist yet, they can sometimes help make their desired position a reality by investing in an organization. Now, I do also lift up that we sure ask a lot of them, right? Like all these interns and young adults and young graduates who are really showing up for us. We ask them to do that often for little to no compensation, right? And I've been there too, and I know all of us have, and that is the deal, right? But we have a responsibility there as well. Though the Birchfield Penny has a long tradition collecting archives as well as fine art, I was the first hired archivist with professional training. Technically, I was part of the curatorial department, but no one else was responsible for the general archives beyond Birchfield himself. So I was essentially a lone arranger in a very shiny archive in a very shiny building with no one else who understood what it was that I did. When I moved back to Buffalo, I brought a newly minted awareness of archival practice, but I lacked knowledge of the local ecosystem. It was Heidi Ziemer, the regional archivist at WNYLRC at the time, who was my lifeline. Her knowledge of who was working on what, where, with what community, helped me ground myself in my understanding of the landscape here in Western New York in vibrant depth. I met so many people and understood not just who they were, but what they were working on. All of us here are working on projects that you can't see when you look at us, right? And so knowing that person who's like, oh, this person's working on this side project, and actually they're connecting with those over there, it really did help me orient myself in ways that I still benefit from today. As a young archivist, it really helped me to have someone who I could turn to see if I was on the right track. And Heidi always knew the resources which might be available, which I had not considered. At the Birchfield, my chops were quickly put to the test when the director told me we were acquiring the Art Park archives 4 months after I was hired. Looking back now, perhaps this was my first experience with the differences between learning in the classroom and learning in the field. I was more or less told on a Friday that we would be picking up the collection on Monday. And when I asked to slow down for a minute so we could do an assessment, nope, we're going. It has been my experience that this is something Lone Rangers often deal with, having to respond to forces which they have no agency to control. I know all of us deal with that in various ways. Absolutely, all of us deal with that. But when it's just you, when it really is just you, it is so difficult to even have a hand on the rudder, right? We are both trying to hold back the tides and trying to just make, any impact we can. And yet our hearts are in this, right? We are here for the cultural heritage materials. And so we're going to show up kind of no matter where the ship goes, has been my experience. Fast forward 8 years and glossing over so many details of the Art Park archive, including 300 sticky binders full of slides and World War I naval barracks with a dead goose in the stairwell, which is where I processed the collection. Thanks to an army of interns, some of which are in the room today, and grants from WNYLRC, thanks to an army of interns and grants from WNYLRC and the Documentary Heritage Project, the 200+ box collection has been fully processed. A 400-page DAX-compliant finding aid, fully rehoused collection described to the folder level, plus 70% of the image collection described to the item level. It remains one of my greatest professional achievements, but there were so many points where I could not see the finish line or how I was going to get there. It really mattered to know that Heidi and WNYLRC were there, with advice whenever I needed it, small grants to purchase supplies, and excellent legal analysis through the Ask a Lawyer program. The copyright questions of the Art Park Archive are still, just a complete tangle, but that is not my expertise. And I was able to turn to the Ask a Lawyer program in great depth. Like I had a number of different consultations, and it really helped me understand what were the options with that collection available. There is one project that would have never happened without WNYLRC, and that is the digitization of the Challenger community newspaper. Through the Birchfield, I had connected with Alnisa Banks and Leah Hamilton, the owner and associate publisher of the paper, respectively. When I first met with them, we talked about their archives, which were in a state of disarray after a recent move, the archives recently having been saved from a nearby burst pipe. When I first met with the Challenger, they were keeping their copies of the paper in trash bags because it was the only safe way that they could ensure that they would stay dry, but that was the state. They initially were not sure how we could help them, and I admit I didn't know either. The Challenger was not looking to donate their collection at all. They were not looking to donate it to anyone, and I did not have the capacity to organize their archive for them. Yet a year later, when a paid internship opportunity became available through Buffalo State for Buffalo State students, I was able to get a paid intern to work at the Challenger, arranging and describing the newspaper under my direction. That's actually the first time I started going to the Grosvenor Room at Central Library. There was no existing chronological, index or inventory of the Challenger, and the only place we could go that had them in order was the bound copies at Central Library. It took years, but once the collection was organized, it was Heidi and Cheryl who encouraged me to apply for what was initially the RBDB grants and then later on became the Access and Innovation grants. First, so we received for the Challenger 3 different grant cycles. First, we prepared the 2019 year of the Challenger to be included in the New York State Historic Newspaper portal. That was also a great training experience for the staff at the Challenger to understand how they needed to prepare their files to continue ingesting it into the New York State Historic Newspapers portal. Later, we received 2 successive rounds of grants from WNYLRC through the AIG program, allowing us to hire vendors to first digitize the paper and later then to transfer the microfilm. It is squarely because of WNYLRC's support, both intellectual and financial, that this vital newspaper documenting Buffalo's African American and Black communities since the 1960s has been preserved. And it is all now on New York State Historic Newspapers. Admittedly, they did change the institution of ownership for these digital files from the Birchfield to the public library once I moved there, but physically, the materials are still owned by the Challenger. The Challenger project was especially powerful for me because the Challenger never donated the paper to the Birchfield, and that was never going to be the end goal of the relationship. Let me say that again. The Challenger was never going to donate the paper to us, and that was never the end goal. And I know that a lot of our institutions often want to have some sort of control over rights and donation and that sort of intellectual control. And yet in many ways that limits us from being able to truly help preserve our local community's heritage. It can't be about ownership. It has to be about understanding that we all have to raise the waters. You know, we have a responsibility to the community beyond our institution. Over the years, I've experienced many situations where what is needed most to preserve cultural heritage is not necessarily money, but creative problem solving for how to address the issue at hand. There are so many valuable resources that we have at our disposal. Time, maybe it's an intern's time, attention, space, and advocacy. The challenger had an expressed need that I had insight into how to solve, expertise that they did not have, nor the capacity, they did not have the bandwidth, you know, to even explore preservation of their materials. They were two women running a paper, and they still are. They do distribution themselves. Like, it's a small affair. And so I was able to turn to my larger cultural heritage community to figure out how to leverage our resources, what we had available, to ensure that this shared history is not lost. And this is what a community archive can be in practice, a shared model of care, where those with the experience share it with those who need it, regardless of deed of gift form or rights. Because cultural heritage is precious and fragile, and we have the experience to help. In some of my personal practice, I've been investing in mutual aid networks, right? We're all investing in mutual aid in many different ways. But institutionally, I think there's opportunities for us to look at what resources we might have that we can mutually share as well. And I think that starts here with us talking and also realizing who's not here in the room and having the conversations with them that will hopefully make them more aware of the shared resources we have and want to leverage together. With the world changing and shifting and ways ever unfolding that no one knows where this is going. I hope we can build open-ended relationships based not on goals, but on shared values of care. I personally look forward to continuing to build avenues for open-ended communication and connection with all of you in this room and beyond, so that we can hear and process how to show up for each other better. I personally am grateful beyond measure for how WNYLRC has helped our regional heritage survive, and I am looking forward for all we can do to grow together. Thank you.